Why so many Americans want to leave the USA in 2025. In 2025, a growing number of Americans are considering something that was once unthinkable: leaving the United States of America, their homeland, but why? The answer isn't simple. It's not just about politics or money. It's about culture, climate, freedom, and something deeper: a sense of belonging. In this documentary, we explore the complex web of reasons that have led so many people to search for a new beginning elsewhere. From the frustrated millennials and burnt-out professionals to retirees and digital nomads, the desire to emigrate from the US has never been this widespread in modern history. We talk to sociologists, economists, immigrants, and those who are planning their exit. This is not a political ad or a social media rant. It's a clear-eyed look into a movement that reflects a nation at a crossroads: political polarization and disillusionment. The first and perhaps most visible factor behind the immigration wave is political fatigue. The divide between left and right, red and blue, seems wider than ever. Civil discourse is broken down, and many feel alienated in their own country. Interview with political analyst. People are exhausted. It's not just about who's president. It's about a constant state of tension. Families divided, communities polarized, and trust in institutions eroded. Economic anxiety and the cost of living crisis. While America is still one of the richest countries in the world, many of its citizens don't feel wealthy or even secure. Rising inflation, housing shortages, and medical debt have left millions feeling economically trapped. For the middle class and working class alike, the cost of living has soared beyond what many consider sustainable. From groceries to rent to healthcare, everything feels more expensive, and wages haven't kept up. Economist. What we're seeing is a generation of Americans, especially younger ones, who feel like the system is rigged. They see their peers in other countries getting affordable education, universal healthcare, and livable wages, and they want the same. Software developer living in Mexico. I realized I could work remotely and live twice as well for half the cost. I pay $400 for a beachfront apartment. In California, that wouldn't even get me a storage unit. Cities like Lisbon, Medellin, and Chiang Mai have seen surges in American expats, particularly digital workers escaping both the grind and the expense of life in major US cities. But it's not just about money, it's also about quality of life. And for many, America's work-first culture isn't cutting it anymore. Work culture, burnout, and the search for balance. In the US, overwork is a badge of honor. Yet many Americans are burning out. They're tired of 60-hour work weeks, lack of vacation time, and the relentless pressure to hustle. Other developed countries offer more vacation days, stronger labor protections, and shorter work weeks. For Americans working abroad, the contrast can be shocking. Former healthcare worker in the Netherlands. I used to be on call 24/7. Here, I take real vacations. I spend time with my family. People value life outside of work. The post-pandemic world has changed the way people think about work. Remote work opened doors. And for many Americans, those doors now lead overseas. With burnout and dissatisfaction at all-time highs, moving abroad isn't just a fantasy. It's a solution. Healthcare and safety concerns. For millions of Americans, the healthcare system is a constant source of stress and even fear. Despite spending more on healthcare than any other country, the US ranks poorly on outcomes, access, and affordability. A single medical emergency can plunge a middle-class family into debt. Insurance is expensive, confusing, and not always enough. Public health expert. People are realizing they can get better, cheaper care in other countries. In many places, you can walk into a clinic, see a doctor, and pay a fraction of what you'd pay in the US, all without insurance. Retiree in Costa Rica. I had surgery for $2,200. In the US, it would have cost $20,000, even with my Medicare coverage. The care was excellent, and the hospital was spotless. Then there's the issue of safety. Gun violence has become a uniquely American epidemic. Mass shootings, school lockdowns, and the normalization of firearms have created a climate of fear, especially for parents. Many families cite gun violence as a primary reason for considering a move abroad. Countries with stricter gun laws, like Japan, Germany, or Australia, offer what some Americans now see as a luxury: peace of mind, climate anxiety and environmental concerns, wildfires in California, flooding in Florida, droughts in the Midwest. Climate change is no longer a distant threat. It's a daily reality for many Americans. As natural disasters become more frequent and severe, some Americans are making the ultimate adaptation, moving somewhere safer. Environmental scientist. Climate migration used to be something we associated with the global south, but now we're seeing Americans move for the same reason: to escape extreme heat, water shortages, or rising sea levels. Young couple who moved to Portugal. Our house in Arizona was in the evacuation zone twice in 1 year. We couldn't raise our kids like that. Now we're in the mountains near Porto, cooler, greener, and safer. Beyond physical safety, there's an emotional toll. Climate anxiety, a growing psychological stressor, is pushing some Americans to seek refuge in countries with more aggressive environmental policies and greener living conditions. Cultural shifts, identity, and the feeling of not belonging, culture, is invisible until you feel like you don't fit into it anymore. For many Americans, something about the national mood feels off. The division, anger, individualism, and obsession with celebrity, consumption, and constant performance. It all adds up to a deep sense of alienation. More Americans are reporting a lack of community, meaningful connection, or shared purpose. They feel like strangers in their own country. Sociologist. There's a rising sentiment of cultural displacement. People feel out of sync with national values, whether that's hypercapitalism, political aggression, or a decline in empathy. Testimonial. African-American woman living in Ghana. In the US, I was always seen through a racial lens. Here, I'm just a person. I feel like I belong. Not because everything's perfect, but because I'm not constantly reminded I'm different. Many Americans are finding that their cultural values, whether it's community, slow living, or simplicity, align more closely with life in other countries, and that's prompting some serious self-reflection. Digital nomadism and the new global lifestyle. The rise of remote work has reshaped the global workforce. No longer tied to cubicles or coasts, thousands of Americans are becoming digital nomads, living, working, and traveling abroad. Digital nomad visas, co-living spaces, and online expat communities have made the move easier than ever. And people are taking the leap, not just for adventure, but for a better remote work researcher. Before the pandemic, working remotely from another country was a fringe idea. Now it's a trend, and it's one that governments are embracing. Freelance designer in Thailand, I work for US clients, but I live in Chiang Mai. The cost of living is a third of what it was in Seattle. I have more freedom, more time, and a better lifestyle. This isn't just a workaround, it's a reimagining of the American dream, and it's being exported across borders by people seeking more meaning, more freedom, and more control. Race, identity, and the search for safety and dignity. For Americans of color, especially Black, Latino, and Asian communities, the idea of leaving the US isn't always just about opportunity. It's also about safety, dignity, and the right to live without constant racial stress. From racial profiling to police violence to systemic inequality, many have reached a breaking point. The emotional toll of navigating life under these conditions, day after day, year after year, is heavy. Civil rights advocate. For many, America has never been a safe place. What's new is that now, people have more tools, more access, and more courage to leave. They're realizing they don't have to stay and fight forever. They can simply opt out. Afro-Latina artist living in Spain. I didn't want to constantly explain my existence anymore. Here, I can just be. That freedom is priceless. Whether they're seeking cultural connection, escaping racial tension, or looking for new spaces to thrive, more people of color are rewriting what it means to be American, globally. The psychology of leaving and the emotional cost of staying. Leaving one's country is not easy. It's a decision layered with fear, guilt, hope, and grief. But for many Americans in 2025, staying has begun to feel like a greater emotional burden. There's a silent mental health crisis happening. Burnout, depression, and anxiety tied not only to personal issues, but to a collective sense of national decline. Therapist working with expats. I hear the same themes. People feel hopeless, unheard, and overwhelmed. Many aren't running away. They're moving toward peace, possibility, and mental clarity. Therapist working with expats. I hear the same themes. People feel hopeless, unheard, and overwhelmed. Many aren't running away. They're moving toward peace, possibility, and mental clarity. Former social worker in Canada. I was scared to leave, but I was more scared of who I was becoming by staying. Angry, cynical, numb. Now I feel like I can breathe again. The emotional toll of being in survival mode, of always fighting for healthcare, safety, or sanity, has worn people down. Sometimes the most radical act of hope is not staying to fix things, but finding a new place to grow. Is this the end of the American dream? So what does it mean that so many Americans are looking to leave? Is it a crisis of faith? A mass migration of talent? Or simply the next evolution of the American dream? A dream no longer bound by borders? Some say those who leave are giving up. Others say they're waking up. In truth, it may be both. Because behind every departure is a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? Throughout history, Americans believed in reinvention. Maybe now that reinvention just takes place elsewhere, in quieter corners of the world where people can rediscover what matters most. Whether they leave for politics or peace, cost or culture, the choice to emigrate is personal, but it also tells a bigger story. A story about a nation many feel has lost its way, and a generation trying to find their own. So if this film made you think, made you feel, or gave you a new perspective, help us keep the conversation going. Like this video to support independent storytelling. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel for more voices, more stories, and more truth.